that the slated?
Snapshot.
All right, I have one more story I want to tell you. A little extra,
Yeah.
because this is the one that probably defined my career,
Okay.
and it's not that well known. So before we went into war to Kosovo, our last workup in February 1999, Comp 2X off the USS Theodore Roosevelt, was in February. We were finishing up operations. One of my youngest pilots, his name's Craig Larson, Naval Academy grad. I actually had trained him like I had done with so many other pilots. I took him to the boat as the XO of the squadron before I joined the VF-14 Top Hatter. So I had actually flown with him. I knew him as well as any of my aviators. Well, anyway, during Com 2X, he was having a heck of a time landing, and we were on the edge of having to give him a board. He responded, he did a great job, and I was so proud of him. And as a reward, I said, Craig, you and I are going to fly off together on the first launch to head back home, as we're going to get a couple days of leave before we go on this combat deployment. It was the 80th anniversary of the Top Hatters, the oldest continuous operating squadron in the Navy. So this jet that we're manning up, Aircraft 200, white tail with the big red logo with a Top Hatter in it, and that's what we man up on the flight deck for the fly-off. 40 plus airplanes on the flight deck, locked flight deck, and no kidding, we are the first airplane to launch off the waist. As we hit the end of the stroke in afterburner, fuel pressure light. And Craig, dutifully, as we're still in the clearing turn, fuel pressure light. Out of afterburner, no big deal, stay below 14,000 feet, let's just go home. And we no longer started to climb out. I just said, something's wrong. I don't know if I smelled something, couldn't tell. I look behind me, I can't see the tails of the airplane. The whole airplane is encased in fuel. Fuel's coming out of the whole back end of the airplane. Never seen anything, never heard anything like it. And I had that moment where I thought, am I dead? Am I imagining this? Because this is not possible. You know, we're flying, you know, 2 TF-30s burning 1,000 degrees plus, and there's fuel popping out over the jet. How come we're still here? So Craig and I are in this climb out. Our wingman launches, says, hey, your dumps are on. And I jump on the back radio, no, we're leaking fuel. And it struck me, okay, we're not dead. And I had that one magic moment where I thought, I have maybe a short amount of input here. And I said, Craig, go to military. If we're going to lose fuel, let's turn it into speed and let's get as close to land as we can, because we're not going to land on the carrier. There's no place else to go. We're 100 miles away from Naval Air Station Oceana. We're about 85 miles away from Kitty Hawk, and I'm already thinking if I can just get to Kitty Hawk, maybe we can put the jet down there. As we stayed below 14,000 feet, we're now getting up to close to about 350, almost 400 knots. Our wingman joins, and we start analyzing. We can't move fuel around. We can't take any of the fuel out of the tanks. There's fuel coming out of the left side, and that's where it's burning the fuel, and we can't transfer any of the fuel on the right side. So some sort of catastrophic fuel pressure line has exploded. Some, for whatever reason, the engines didn't blow us up. And we calculate that we've got about 7 minutes of flying left. And that's when I realized we can't even get to Kitty Hawk. And then we're talking through what a controlled ejection is going to look like. And then it hits me. I'm going to go out first on a rocket motor with jet fuel coming out, and it's going to blow up Craig. So that's not an option. So now we're talking about how we're going to basically just ditch the airplane. And we've got weapons on board, a lantern pod, tanks. I'm not sure this is going to go all that well. We're going to talk about just dropping everything and see if we can slick the jet off and put it down in the water. The water temperature is, you know, something like 45 degrees. It's February. We are in wetsuits. And as we're making our descent to get as close to land as we can, we're thinking we're going to get about, 10 miles off the coast. I look to my left, and it's a clear blue sky. I mean, it's like 60-mile visibility. And I'm looking into North Carolina, and I see a runway. The sun is out of the east. It's in the morning, and it's like a spotlight on this little runway. And I don't know what the runway is. And I know we're near Dare County, but I just had never thought of this runway. Well, it was Dare County Airport, a World War II trainer airfield, 3,000-foot runway, uncontrolled. And then I said, Craig, we can make that runway. And I give him about a 30-second brief how to do a min-roll landing, because I had done air shows with guys like Pogo Clark and Fred Killian, Hulk Inman, and we did that routinely in the Tomcat, but in a very light Tomcat. Well, right now we're at like 58,000 pounds with the trap fuel and all this stuff on board. I I talked to the controller. Obviously, had declared an emergency. There's no controlling tower. There's a whole bunch of Cessnas there. And as we're descending, our wingman came up and gave us one great advice. It was Axel Matthewson. He said, make sure you keep your DLC off. At least you'll slow yourself down a little bit. On that day, we were 20 knots of natural wind, all crosswind, on an east-west runway, 3,000 feet. It had just been hardened for C-130, so it was hardened for 50,000 feet, close enough. And as we're descending down there, we're going to have time for basically one pass, and we're going to run out of gas. I told Craig, you're going to have to land the airplane at 1,600 feet per minute rate of descent, basically crash the airplane into the overrun, feet on the brakes. If you're going to blow one tire, you got to blow them both. Obviously, we got carrier pressure tires, beryllium brakes, right? And we haven't tested that the whole carrier period. But there's water on the east side of the runway and there's water on the west side. So if the worst case happened, we just dribble off and we go into the west side, and it's the same thing as ditching, as long as we don't blow one brake and go into all the other airplanes. So again, Craig's my youngest pilot, probably my least experienced, and now I'm guiding him through this once-in-a-lifetime landing. And I'll never forget the sight picture as we were just about 100 feet from touching down, coming down like dropping an airplane from the second floor story of a building and just dropping it on the runway. That's how hard we're coming down. And I thought, this is a bad idea. And as he touches down, right on the end of the runway, feet on the brakes, the beryllium brakes do exactly what they're advertised. I can feel them grabbing, releasing, grabbing, and releasing. And we were below 100 knots almost immediately. And I said, get off the brakes. I didn't want to blow any brakes at that point. And then get on the brakes. And we stopped that jet in 2,000 feet. Now our problem was, where do we park? Because, we got the main mounts of a footprint of a B-52, and we're going to sink through any asphalt. So we're taxiing off an uncontrolled airport. There are people already coming, because you don't get a Tomcat landing at Dare County ever. And we've got these white tails, for the 80th anniversary bird. Unbelievable, we found a piece of concrete. And as we parked it, we got all of the rest of the lights, low oil, everything, as the left engine started to spool down. We were running out of gas. And we parked the jet. So it turned out it was 2 fuel lines that had come apart on the catapult. The Wiggins fittings that were designed to last 30 years, they were 27 years old. They obviously failed a little bit early. Believe it or not, it was a fairly quick fix. Scooter Moyer, Blue Angel pilot, and I flew it out the next day, which was just as hard to get it out on a 3,000 foot runway with minimum fuel to get it home than it was to get it in there.
That is a story, buddy. Oh my God.
I'd only been in command for like 3 months, so the decision to land there was a make or break. I mean, if we had busted one tire and taken out 60 airplanes, that would have been it. Craig and I flew one time in combat, and we had a fuel problem. And I said, I love you, but that's it. We're done. Never again. And he went and did transfer with the Brits. He flew Tornadoes. He made commander. So he did well.
Man,
Wow.
You're Snapshot, that's some good stuff. That is some good stuff like that.
It was a hard way to earn an air medal.
Please like and share if you find the video content interesting. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment below so as not to miss new upcoming videos. Thanks for watching.